authors. I'm Joanne Morrell, children's and young adult fiction writer and author of short nonfiction for authors. Thanks for joining me for the Hybrid Author podcast, sharing interviews from industry professionals to help you forge a career as a hybrid author, both independently and traditionally publishing your books. You can get the show notes for each episode and sign up for your free author pass over at the Hybrid Author website to discover your writing process, get tips on how to publish productively, and get comfortable promoting your books at www.hybridauthor.com.au. Let's crack on with the episode. Hello, authors. I hope you're all keeping well in whatever part of the world you reside and listen to the podcast in. Today's interview is with Kozak on how to elevate your life and business to a higher level, and we chat what it means to elevate a brand and how that translates into elevating your life and business. What role does clarity play in making a brand not only authentic but impactful? How someone can begin identifying their gifts, and what's the shift that happens when they build a brand around them with intention? Key mindset shifts or branding principles authors can adopt right now to begin operating at a higher level of impact, purpose, and much more. So in my continued author adventure this week, I wanted to share that I went for a walk around my local lake. It's something I usually do often, and I'm glad that I got it in the other day because the rains have appeared here in Perth, Western Australia, which is great for the plants and the gardens that are all coming back to life after a really hot summer. It was real nice to get back out. I love walking out in nature, and I just love walking in general. I'm not really a runner, I'm definitely a walker or whatever. The actual whole walk round, it's a lake, but it's in a sort of residential, kind of goes off into near shops and main road and stuff like that, but it's just lovely. And I've been walking around that for quite a while now, and it's usually about 40 minutes. And I don't really listen to anything usually when I go around. I like to try and pay attention to myself and my surroundings. I usually can see that my mind just wants to go off into like a million different directions, and I just let it wander, and I think that's quite good. But if I do have a podcast that I want to listen to or something I want to listen to, I'll maybe switch it on about halfway round. So there was a podcast that I listened to yesterday. It's the Self-Publishing with Ally podcast, and that was the episode with Orna Ross and Joanna Penn. And it was titled How Creative Confidence Shapes Authors' Voice and Guides AI Use. And it was a good episode because they talk about different creator energy and things like that, and talking about walking as meditation. And it definitely is. I'm not someone who sits and does the usual meditation, but I certainly use walking around the lake as a way to watch my mind and let the ideas flow and things like that. And they do talk about creative flow in this episode. I really connected with it because walking around the lake, I get ideas and things like that. Yesterday, I got an idea for a social media post, and then I also got an idea about my young adult fiction from last year. If you listen to the podcast, you know that I was working on one. I took it to a writer's retreat, had it critiqued by a traditional publishing house, and I've kind of put it down to focus on the women's fiction. But this manuscript keeps floating back to me, and it's massive. It's a really big, epic story, and the outline is kind of clear in my mind, but it also isn't. There's lots of work needing done on it. There's lots of holes in it, and I think I've reread it maybe once this year. But what I thought about, because the actual thought of sitting down to try and work through it, to try and do that, it instantly throws me back out. And I'm not sure why that is. But the idea that came to me walking around the lake was to really just step back and get the general idea of what the story is about as a whole. So I thought about writing a page just to myself on telling myself the story, just to get some clarity on the bigger picture, because we can become very close to the story going through sort of chapter by chapter, but thinking about it as a whole and writing it out almost like a short story, and throwing out the usual writing conventions of what stops us from writing, because I think maybe that's what I overload on myself is I know the level it's got to be at, and it's a lot of work, obviously, and I know what needs to be done, but I just felt like writing this couple of pages to myself, telling myself the story. And this sentence kept appearing as I was walking around the lake, tell yourself the story, then show it to others. And by showing it to others, I mean writing that story out, using the proper writing skills when you're showing it to others. But first off, tell yourself the story so you can tell it in plain terms. And that got me really excited because I felt like that was something I could do. They always harp on about show, don't tell in writing. And for many of you, many people listening, you'll understand that term. Or if you're new, you'll certainly come to discover the lengths of what that is. So I encourage you, if you're kind of stuck on a work and not sure where it's going, then just tell yourself the story. Sit down and write it out. Not quite a story Bible like in screenwriting. They have a story Bible, and that's like the plots and themes and characters, and it just works as almost a resource guide for people. But this, I'm just saying, is like a 1-page or a 2-page. You could even call it a short story, just to tell yourself what you believe the initial story is. And obviously it just depends on what your writing process is. And I'm certainly using plot points to navigate these stories going forward. I'm not writing them out, as they say, fly by the seat of your pants, which is how I started writing. But I almost feel like maybe that's what I need to do a little bit with this story and see where it goes. So definitely beneficial to get out of your office, do some exercise, and practice letting your mind wander. I talked about daydreaming on the last episode, and I think I'm just enjoying letting my mind take off to where it wants to visit and take me along for the ride. Another resource I wanted to share, which I have talked about before on the podcast, is a site I'm signed up to. It's called Authors Publish, and I get like a newsletter that comes out, and it's usually a list of, I think they're based in the US, a list of magazines that have compiled, there's this many magazines, like specific genres looking for this, or it's just good if you're a freelance writer or you're looking to write in different aspects or get your work published in magazines or anthologies and things like that. So the one that was sent recently, which is very fitting for our podcast, is 30 magazines publishing hybrid writing. It says these, and this is written by S. Kailker, if I'm saying that correctly. These literary magazines and outlets publish hybrid, experimental, and or cross-genre writing. They accept other genres also, like fiction, non-fiction, poetry, and translations. Some of the magazines pay writers, many but not all of them are open for submissions right now. And then there's a list of a fair few of these magazines, 30 of them. There's Harpy Hybrid Review. It says their guidelines are Harpy Hybrid Review exists to celebrate and showcase hybrid works in all their varied formats. Poetry, songs, translations, flash microfiction, creative nonfiction, videos. They used to publish one single line poetry, however, they're moving to mixed genre format to include single line poems or concrete poems. It's all hybrid, a mixing, and they're interested in works that stretch, expand, test, challenge, blending genres, hybrid writing, blurred lines, just all different. So I'll put the link to that in the show notes for anybody who is interested in looking up magazines to publish their hybrid writing. The upcoming interview with Rich Kozak chats about, Rich is obviously knowledge on brands and impact brands and purpose and things like that. But one standout from talking to Rich was a very hybrid. He talks about his own work. How hybrid are you? The upcoming interview with Rich Kozak, which is very exciting and knowledgeable about branding and impact branding and elevating your life and business and things like that. But one standout thing when I was talking to Rich was when he was talking about his own books and his own work and how he's incorporated, a QR code within the book. So it just got me to thinking that's extremely hybrid. He's mixing your print style writing of a book with digital technology. And some people might think, oh, that kicks people out of reading, but it's just a very interactive way of your work. You could create whole scenes, whole worlds, jump back and forth between the reader reading the book and then going online to discover further visual storytelling behind different things. I just thought it was, especially in today's world, where everybody seems to have a smartphone and they just click with the QR codes to take them somewhere. I just think it adds an absolute element. And Rich talks about being there on the journey with the reader to share what he needs them to know, coming straight directly from him rather than them reading his words, is really powerful. Again, that's an extremely hybrid way to consider your work, and whether mixing it up with technology such as QR codes to invite them into a whole other world outside of the mind, outside of the book visually. It's a really cool way to think about being extra hybrid. Thorn Creative, where beautiful websites for authors are brought to life. No matter what stage you're at with your writing, your stories deserve a dedicated space to shine. Whether you're just starting out or have a bookshelf full of bestsellers, your website is the hub of your author business, binding everything you and your books offer together. Thorn Creative can nurture all aspects of redesigning your old site or start afresh from the initial design. They can provide ongoing hosting and maintenance to marketing your books online, saving you time, money, and stress trying to wrangle your site yourself. An author website built by Thorn Creative can easily direct readers to your favorite retailers, your publisher, or simply set you up to sell to them direct. The options are endless. Thorn Creative have worked with many authors across all genres and know what goes into good, functional working author websites to sell books. Head on over to thorncreative.com.au/websites for authors to read author and publisher testimonials and to see what they offer and some of the sites they've created. Rich Kozak is the voice of impact-driven branding. After decades languaging and launching brands, he founded RichBrands specifically to serve heart-centered entrepreneurs and professionals. At RichBrands, Rich guides individuals in elevating their unique gifts so their brand makes higher-level impacts, and in creating, writing, and publishing books to move their brand forward. The wisdom he shares is clarity for the impacts you will make and steps for the brand you will become. Welcome to the Hybrid Author Podcast, Rich.
It is a blessing to be here. And actually, I really believe there's a great reason that I am here because of what you do and because of those people who are listening that are either aspiring authors or they want to be in the publishing business or they love the idea of writing or some combination. So let's have some fun here.
Can you tell us more about, what you do, your mission, and how you're helping individuals taking that step to have a publishing business or they're writing their book?
Literally, I just got off of a Zoom call with a writer that works with me, and we're putting the finishing touches on my book, Impact Branding 7 Steps to Ensure Your Brand Impacts People's Lives and the World. But most of the time, I have 4 clients that are in the midst of writing the creative brief or defining the chapters or bullet pointing the chapter. A book here at RichBrands is a stake in the ground that moves a brand forward in the direction that it knows it strategically needs to move to make the impacts that it clearly sees making. The people I work with are typically individuals. Now, they may own a business, they may have employees, or they may have groups that work with it, or they may be a solopreneur, but they have impacts that they clearly see making on others, and they can clearly see those impacts, sometimes before they make them, but maybe they make them already. Most of the time, they want to make higher level impacts. They're the ones that are saying, look, I've been doing this a long time, but I'm not done. I'm not sure where this goes, but I need to take it to a higher level. I want, more geography or more target audiences, or you know what? I want it to be more divine impact. You know those people, right? You know what I'm talking about? Okay. So for those people, defining and languaging the brand they will become, not the brand they are now, but let's get over the elephant in the room. The brand is not the costume. The brand is the perception in the target audience's mind. That's the brand. And if they still see, somebody looks at you that you knew in high school and they go, oh yeah, I know her. They don't. Or then you were in high school. People evolve and brands evolve. If an individual does not evolve that perception, they're seen as they were seen. They might never make those higher level impacts because they're not perceived as able to. They're not perceived as ready to. They're not perceived in the way they must be perceived, the categories of expertise and the characteristics, so that people go, wow, I think they can help me. I think she's the one evolving brands to make their highest level impacts. Not just the doctor that wrote the book on stress in 1994, and he's going to help some people with stress today. He's going to create, this is a client, he's going to create the Institute of Life Mastery. because more than anyone in the whole world, he understands that emotions mastery and stress mastery are the first steps in life mastery. And he's going to teach the language and process of life mastery to children for generations. Now that is a higher level brand. And for him, that's his divine purpose. So when we're working with someone on a book, okay, since that was your question, how is this book a stake in the ground that moves this brand forward in the direction it must move to that next milestone? Often the first book, it has to do with their expertise, what they've already done, what they're known for, and so forth. But there's a segue in that book to the next one. And the next book is a bridge book. And the third book might be their highest level impacts book, the real purpose as they step into their divine purpose of why they think they're really here. That's what we get to do.
Yeah.
And books and podcasts and signature speeches are a part of it. And they get defined in language uniquely with unique language that transfers energy. So when an individual says, this is what we're known for, this is what our expertise is, no one else says it that way. And there's no competition. Welcome to RichBrands. Okay. I've been doing this for 48 years. You have to understand. And I used to think it was my skill.
Yeah.
And about 10 years ago, almost, about 9.5 years ago, I started working only with individuals because for 20 years, I helped run a global branding and marketing agency with partners all over the world. I don't do that anymore. I was addicted to that. And I literally resigned my addictive career and changed my prayer. Lord, I'm going to resign this addictive career to reshape my life. Show me what you want me to do. I'm ready. And I started doing a bunch of other stuff. And I came back to branding in an odd way. I won't tell the whole story. But when I realized what I do with an individual helps them not only to thrive in their business sooner by focusing on the impacts that they really want to make, but it helps create a platform that makes it easier for them to step into why they're really here. And you know, Joanne, you and I and all the people who are listening, we all have the same opportunity, and it's to make the most significant impacts we can on others' lives, sharing love and praising God. Those are the two reasons, you know, the book I read every morning says we're here and everything else is man-made. But the love part is really important. People share love differently. You share love by having a podcast, talk about book writing. I share love by helping people step into their purpose and define language that makes them come alive from their heart. And they don't feel like they had to put on a superhero costume to become some brand that was somebody else's idea. They become the brand they must become to make the impacts that their heart says they really want to make. That's so cool. So are books important? You bet.
Yeah. No, that's
Language
amazing.
important? Oh my God, it is really important. And language is powerful. I don't need to tell you that. You're the queen of that.
No, no. Oh no, honestly, that's incredible, and it sounds like you're doing really meaningful work for everybody. So your clients, everyone that comes, it all sort of, obviously you're looking to get their language and message correctly for their brand. Does everybody end up having a book, or
Not everyone.
not
It
everyone?
really, let me give you 3 examples. One woman called me and said, hey, my girlfriend said, hey, you know, you've been texting people with a little scriptural note once a week, and how you've been doing this 3 years. Hey, you should write a book, and I know a guy. And she calls me. She couldn't spell marketing. She now has the first of a series of 10 books, and it puts her on a path that she knew she was on to help bring people back into the scripture, into the word that had kind of gotten away from it. One of her categories of expertise is reconnect, you know, the woman speaking at the higher level life conference next year is an expert at reconnecting to the God you met in Sunday school. For her, that is like so her. And so she has language, she has a brand name, she has an umbrella brand, she's the founder of a legacy brand, and she couldn't even spell brand before. But when she said, I want to write a book, I said, you got 2 choices. You know, I want a book, or a book is a stake in the ground. And she, by the time we're done, we'd created 10 covers. It's just a wonderful thing. So another woman born in Africa comes over here. Her dad says he wants her to be an attorney. She becomes an attorney, a law firm in DC. And I meet her when she's out here. She's no longer an attorney. She's looking for what she's going to do next, but she knows she wants to write. She wants to create curriculum to help the law firms and other maybe tech companies understand the true power of diversity, not checklist diversity, not the DEI kind of thing that got institutionalized in universities, but the true power of natural diversity, the diversity in God's eyes when he or she, so haven't been there, created. Okay. And so we worked for 9 months and she goes, I'm interviewing. We defined types of people and the impact she clearly sees making on them at different levels of the corporation, including the chairman, including, Gen Z, and all these different people and the impact. And she goes in for her 9th interview and says, these are the impacts I clearly see making. And the chairman goes, oh my God, you're the one we want. She goes, well, you're the one I want. And she calls me from the cabin. I got the job. Does she have a work? No, not yet. Chances are she will, or her foundation, or her think tank, or her whatever we end up calling it. But right now she's in that. She's, a global player in a law firm that's in 11 countries. Okay. Right. And then kind of just like, how many, I don't know if it's the way it is in Australia, but here, if somebody said, you say, hey, what do you do? And they go, oh, I'm a financial advisor. You roll your eyes and you're like, boy, another one. It's like saying I'm a life coach. It's like there's one on every street corner, maybe even 2 or 3 on every street corner. And so this guy comes to me and says, look, I want to take this to another level. I have no idea how, and I think you can help me. I'm like, fine. He goes, but I only have so much time because I have to go back to jail. And I'm like, wait a minute, excuse me? No. I said, well, I'm a chaplain. Turns out he goes into the jails 6 to 10 times a month to listen to people's life stories and to be there for them and to share the word with them, but not to proselytize. He's living his faith. I don't know how many people you know who live their faith by going into jails. I don't know too many. This guy's the real deal, but he's a financial advisor. So he comes to Brand Accelerator Mastery, which is a 7-day thing I do. If somebody goes, I want this all done, get me all that language, everything done in a matter of 3 months to meet like 7 different days. And we're on day 4. And I said, hey, Frank, I've rewritten your elevator speech and I've written 3 book titles. And he goes, book title? Writing any books? I said, well, Frank, a book is a stake in the ground that moves a brick. Let's talk about it later. Here, you want to hear the elevator speech? He used to say, oh, I'm a financial advisor. Okay. So I said, Frank, you had a nice tie. You got a name badge or a thing. You're getting in the elevator and somebody goes, hey, Frank, nice tie. What do you do? And you say, well, I used to serve for years. I served as a financial advisor, but he rolls his own eyes. But today I decided I want to serve people in a much higher way. And so I created my own company, a special company, particularly for committed savers. And I created a company called Safe Savers Options, using your money's power. And today I serve as a savers wealth advocate. Does that help, brand? When language not only is unique, but it exchanges energy and makes people go, wow, Frank, I got to go, but can I have your card? Instead of, oh, that's nice. Because there's an intangible brand promise baked into the language. Well, the woman speaking at the New Body Conference next year is an expert at body intelligent yoga. Body intelligent yoga. Oh my God, I've been doing yoga in my $1 million house for like 10 years. I think I want that. What's in there? When you craft language that has intangible brand promises baked into it, you become a magnet to those for whom the language was created. And it's completely congruent with your heart, because you started by saying, hey, heart, whom do I clearly see impacting? And I really want to impact. And that's where you began. And all you did was use a 7-step process, impact-driven branding, to define in language the brand you must become to make those impacts faster. What do you think's going to happen? Here's the punchline. We're talking about books. Frank, the guy I just talked about, just finished his 2nd book. And he just got a contract from a major New York publisher with global reach. And we're sending out requests for endorsement to fill 16 pages in the front of the book. What are people saying about the importance of this book and the brand? This is his 2nd book, so it is the bridge book, a stake in the ground to move him toward where his brand is really going.
And so do you guys, so if people are coming to you and obviously the books are getting created, do the clients write them, or you have ghostwriters, or is it created collaboratively, or how do you go about with the creation and things like that to get the languaging
It's an
for the
excellent
brand?
question. To get the languaging, whoever's writing it, whether it's the client or a ghostwriter or the client and me, but I don't have time to do that much anymore. I did 3 of those 2 years ago and I was like, "Crap, time to do this." But I review it to make sure that chapter is congruent with the brand language. We fix it before the writer reads it to the author.
Yep.
Okay. So there's 3 options. First of all, let's say how we start. I write a brief for the book and the client and I agree on the objectives in priority order. I just finished this for 2 clients, like in the last 2 weeks. What are the objectives of the book in priority order? And then in order to achieve those objectives, for example, give them an insight into the author's caring heart, writing. But if you put QR code videos in there that say, hey, here's what you read in chapter 1, but here's what I want you to hear from my heart to yours, and they scan it with their phone and now they know you. So objectives in order, and then strategies of how we achieve the objectives. You know, if there's 2 voices, if there's a loving, caring heart, but there's also the drop dead serious coach, well, maybe a drop dead serious coach always appears in a box, you know, because it's like, but it's like, really care. Yeah. It's whatever, everyone's different. So that brief gets written. What are the mandatories that must be in there? We have to have stories. We have to have a through line. I want testimonials, you know, they need to be endorsed, right? What must be there. And then knowing the objectives, we go, okay, what would chapter 1 be themed on? You know, where do we start? And what does chapter 2 need to do? And what chapter 3 need to be? And we name and subtitle the chapters and the little subchapter chunks. Like, well, what is it made up of? Well, you know, and when you read the titles and subtitles of the chapters and you go like, this is a great book, but the book hasn't been written yet. But you understand. Okay. So at that point, whoever's going to write it, the author, the client themselves, the ghostwriter, or the client and I, or someone from the team, but up to now it's been me, but as it gets bigger, I'll have other people who do this because they're really, really good at it. Well, talk through the client with each chapter. What would go in there? Oh, the story of the hammock. Oh, you know what? The time that whatever, this statement that I always say, that would go in that chapter. And you kind of bullet point that and then give it to the interviewer. The interviews the author. The interviewer writes the chapter, drafts the chapter. We back and forth it so I know it's congruent. And then we present it to the client. There's chapter 1. Now he can go out or she can go out and use it as a signature speech or mention it on a podcast or give it away as a gift. Every time you do a chapter, you know, now you get 7 or 10 or 11 or 12 chapters done. You have a book. You had a strategy. You're after objectives. You have to write a brief for the cover because that cover needs to do some very specific things. And I even, when I do a half day, matter of fact, I have one this Saturday. I do a half day. It's tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah. Wow. It's called Branding You with Impact. And during that, I literally teach what it looks like when, you know, you're painting these pictures and what happens when you do and what happens when you don't. And people get it and they realize that there is a method, but they never knew there was a method. They never knew there was steps.
Yeah.
People talk about branding being steps. And here it's not just steps, it's steps into purpose. It's steps into significance. It's steps to more rapid, it's steps to accelerate your impacts, which broadens your platform and you can more easily step into why you're here because you're thriving sooner because you focused on impacts instead of on this. It's from our.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And lots comes to mind when you're talking there. Because when I think of branding, and I guess maybe authors listening and things like that, you think about, and it's not the mundane things, and they are important, but you think about the looks, I guess, of what the business would be, or the colors and the things. And you might have a little bit of a mission or a message, but I guess like what you're saying is the focus is really on what you're all about and what you stand for and going further and deeper into that to make an impact.
It is. And when, like in that half day that I do, at the end, I do 2 mini trainings. And one is, how do you prioritize a message hierarchy? Yeah. How many people have you said, like, what do you think my messages ought to be? That's not a good question.
Why are you doing what you do?
It's clarity in the first place, which is what most people say, oh my God, I just need more clarity. It's clarity in whom we really want to impact and the impacts we clearly see. And now when everything the brand says and does aligns with the impacts that you've written down and my mom is an English teacher, so I think she just said Richard. She is from the South.
Love it.
Written down is redundant, just written. Okay, so with a written, that everything the brand says and does is congruent with those impacts that you've written, because you clearly see them. It came from your heart. You don't need 10 different target audiences, and you can have lots more than one. A lot of coaches will say, what's your, and they'll use a tricky word. So you think they know more than you, or your niche, or your essence, or your, avatar, or, all those crazy ass words. I have clients with 13. I have clients with 3. I have clients with 1 target audience that they clearly define, and they define the impacts. Once that occurs, you would track, and everything the brand says does aligns with those impacts. That clarity is so palpable. People feel it because the consistency across the board is just, you can feel it. You attract a lot more than your target audience.
I liked what you said about, I think the book sounds pretty hybrid as well, how you're putting QR codes in for people to be reading the book and then, using their technology. That's a completely different way that I've heard of anybody sort of doing it. And again, hybrid, sort of mixing two things. I think that's really clever.
Frank's book, he's a financial advisor, but this book is entitled, this one that just got the contract, it's not a financial book. It's entitled The Power to Live Your Life, 7 Things to Not Interrupt. Now, it might get retitled at the publisher, but that's what it's about. And 7 of the chapters are like, hey, let's take a look at your mental wellness. Let's take a look at relationships that work. Let's take a look at your integrity. Let's take a look at our trust in God. Let's take a look at stewarding your savings future. 7 things that human beings quickly, thoughtlessly, because there's a blind spot, interrupt. And it takes them and says, okay, for this one, what's the blind spot? And then how do we rationalize that we made an exception? And then how do we kind of make the exception the rule? It walks you through and you're going, oh, God, I wish I'd have given this to my teenagers, it's a marvelous book. One of the chapters is on stewarding your savings future. And so his QR codes are, here's what you read in a chapter, and here's what I want to say to you right to your face about the golden nugget that I want you to own and apply it in your life. So it's Frank Lehane, it's a Frank spotlight, and he tells the Frank Lehane golden nugget. Great. My book, the QR codes are in there to help because my book's a how-to book. It's like steps for branding. It's not like another book about branding. Man, boy, we don't need that. We need look, you're an entrepreneur. You're one of millions that wants to take it higher, that wants to go more. There's more, but you don't know how to do it. Here are the steps. Own it. Take the steps. Just do it. And you know what? And so on chapter 1, I'm going to pop on and say, hey, this is what you read, but you know what? Here's what I want you to hear just to make sure you get it. So when you're doing this, and then I'm right there.
Yeah.
And the language of the book is like, hey, I'm going to be right here with you all along the way. Well, writing that's like, really what I am. And they'll feel my heart and how much I care that they do step into their purpose, but they'll hear this 48-year-old, look, take my word for it. Do this. Do not do that.
Yeah, it's a different experience for sure. Having
and everybody, if you're a healer,
reading your
it's going to be different than if you're an expert, or if you're a coach, it's going to be different than if you're, a software integrator. I've got all these people as clients. It doesn't matter what your, focus is, what your expertise, your area that gives you joy. And I'll say it that way because you're not going to step into the future doing things that don't bring you joy. Let's not kid around. We're here to live abundantly, and we're here to live in joy, and we can help other people live in joy by us giving them what they need because we're giving them love in our special way. So it's like, we all have that opportunity, and what a great blessing. And books can play, books and things like that, podcast, if you're verbal, you as a guest or you as a speaker, like all of these things give you a way to share your love in the way you share love. And we all get to do that. It makes the world a better place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so did you create your book like what you do for your clients as a way of,
Exactly.
showing what, your bridging book
I,
for your
I
impact?
did, as a matter of fact, I actually sent, so there's two there's the creative brief, which has the objectives in priority order and the strategies of how we're going to reach objective, a backgrounder on, because if you're giving it to somebody to do a cover, they need to have a backgrounder on the brand and who's doing what, and mandatories, what has to be in there, and our strategy, and the number one barrier that if we don't overcome it, the brand bounces off and everybody loses. All those things have to be in the brief. And then there's the book chapter outline. And it says here, Tyler, there's a subtitle. Chapter 1 is going to be themed on it. It's going to be themed on peace. And chapter 2 is going to be themed on thoughtfulness. Chapter 3 is going to be themed on clarity. Chapter 4 is going to be themed on, action, whatever it is. Right. And right now, the two that I started, a week, 2 ago, we've completed the brief. And now it's time to start, naming the chapters and saying, well, what happens here? And it just, yeah. So I found myself sending my book chapter outline to the clients going, look, here's an example.
So obviously the audience for the podcast is, aspiring authors or author entrepreneurs or people looking to do writing, publishing, that sort of thing. And branding is a hot topic. It has been for years. What would your advice be to entrepreneurs or aspiring authors what are the things that they should think about from a brand perspective?
Yeah, I'm going to speak right to entrepreneurs. So many of you are going to be solopreneurs. Some of you have companies, but you're the entrepreneur behind the company. So you're the champion behind the brand. Two things. Number one, get the what is a brand part right. I will say it again. And two is come from your heart. Number one, what is a brand? Don't think your brand is what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. You can describe it for an hour. It doesn't matter what you say. Your brand is the perception in the mind of the individual you most want to impact. And maybe that's a company, and maybe it's a type of a woman or a type of a man or a team or a couple, but it is that type of person that you really want to impact. And maybe there's several of them and you do them one at a time. It's the perception in their mind. That's your brand. You work with the perception in the mind of your most important target audience, whom you clearly see impacting and you really want to impact. It's that perception. So brand, that's the brand. Your brand is the perception, not what you say it is. It's what it is in their mind. And that makes branding, all those things you and I get to do to shape a consistent perception in the minds of your most important target audiences. It's all those things you get to do to shape a consistent perception, because brand must be consistent across the board or you lose. Consistency builds trust. Inconsistency, which is rampant, breaks trust. Just saying the same thing 3 different ways, you're screwed. Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to take you a long time to make up for that. Bad move. Okay. All right. So number one, get that brand thing right. Your brand is a perception, but it's not your perception. It's perception and mind of the most important people whose lives you really want to, lives your businesses or you really want to impact. Number 2, come from your heart. Ask your heart whom you clearly see. Hey, heart, give me one. Give me a person I clearly see impacting and I really want it. And it gives you the couple that just got married or the couple that just about to, get divorced, or a woman with a special needs child and she's in her 40s and she's afraid, or someone who was sexually abused as a child and they can't get over and they can't set goals and make them, or somebody who is excited about changing the world and doesn't know the next steps, and somebody who needs a business coach because they don't know how to put one in front of the other, somebody that doesn't know technology, but they have great creative ideas, whatever it is. Heart. Ask your heart. Don't ask your head, because your head will give you the mailman and a rodeo class. Oh, you know what? I can help a rodeo class. Yeah.
What are some inconsistencies that you've seen with branding and stuff, you obviously mentioned language and saying your message, I guess, different ways. Is
Oh,
there other
you know,
things that people do?
it's a great question. The major number one would be some of the main inconsistencies, and number two is what's the problem that created them. So number one, the main inconsistencies is the way you say what you do. I'm going to tell you, we have a list of like 25 things that big companies and solopreneurs say. One of them is we need better ways to say what we do. Why? Because they're not using language to position themselves to A, get credit for what makes them unique, and B, make sure there's no competition.
Mm.
What if you can say, what if a person that has all kinds of different holistic health awarenesses and some skill sets and some certifications, and if they start talking about all that, it's just a mishmash. And you think, well, what do you do? But who are you? And their umbrella brand is now mindful longevity, renewal, renew, re-energize, what? So it's like mindful. And well, what do you do? We're holistic wellness coach that empowers holistic wellness coaching that empowers lives. I want that. What's in there? If he said, well, I was trained by Damian Amen Institute because I do brain, but I also represent a company that helps you build more stem cells in your bloodstream. But, there's some really efficacious mushrooms that are helping with cancer. It's like, you're just going to go, step away from the confusion. Mindful longevity, experiencing a younger brain as you age, holistic wellness coaching that empowers lives. I get chills down my spine. People want that. They need that. Until that umbrella brand was languaged, it was messy. So you asked me a very specific question. I think I got off on a tangent.
It made sense. It sounds like you impacting the message down into punchy, short, to the point.
That's right. We said two
The
things. We said
inconsistencies, yeah.
inconsistency, yeah, how we say what we do. So, the example, the quintessential example is we've all done it. You go to an old school networking meeting where it's live. Okay, though it's on Zoom, but maybe if it's live and somebody comes up to you, they go, hey, I don't think we've met. What do you do? And you explain to them and somebody else is listening and they come up and go, hey, and you ask them what they do. And they say, what did you do again? And you say it in a different way. And they say, oh, didn't you? I thought you did this, but you did it. It's like creating. So if it's not consistent across the board, inconsistency of language. If you're in today's environment, how we show up. Why do you think I'm wearing a RichBrands branded white shirt with a gold tie? I do this, or I wear what you would have seen on the screen, a blue blazer with a blue pinstripe shirt. I have uniforms so that I show up consistently. I don't show up with a Hawaiian shirt one day and with a tank top the next day and with a funny duster cap the next day because I feel cool. It's like, it would be totally incongruent with what I teach. Consistency across the board is mandatory for a brand to come alive. So the way you say what you do, the way you say your expertises, this is really important. We prioritize. What's the first expertise you must get credit for to make your impacts fast? What's the second? What's the third? All the way out to however long they go. And then we craft unique ways to say them that no one else says them that way. So that credit for what makes you outstanding. How you say what you're good at, how you say your expertise is, how you say what you do, the purpose of your business. Okay, that's the biggest inconsistent mess that people hurt their brand simply by what they say when they open their mouth or the way they look or don't look when they show up. The primary cause of that inconsistency is one of two things. It's either not having created a consistent language or hiring a third-party marketer who knows how to do it, and they'll use language they knows works. But that language might not be congruent with the heart of your brand. So now you've got this thing where it's using exaggerated marketing language that they say, oh yeah, you'll get leads, but people aren't feeling the heart of the brand. And so now you've got a problem. Hey, you caused it. Okay, because you didn't give the marketing people, look, this is the way we say it. This is what we do. This is the way we say it, and hey, you didn't give them guidelines. This is, these are the key words. This is our message hierarchy and priority order. Please use it verbatim. It's like, this is hierarchy. I'm like, who has that? Well, everyone that just the 7 steps of impact-driven branding has it because It helps make consistency.
Mm.
And literally, when you say a message from your message hierarchy, you say it matter of factly. Let's say I'm on a podcast and you say, well, Rich, what what advice might you give to every entrepreneur who's listening? And I say to you, well, matter of factly, I go, well, Joanne, the clarity with which a brand speaks shapes the clarity with which your brand speaks shapes its impact. And speaks means everything. But don't forget that. Matter of fact, write that down and put it on your wall. I'm like, do I know? Did that come from a place of knowingness? Yeah, you bet. Write the message hierarchy from a place of knowingness, where only a brand that knows that could say it that way. I don't
Right.
need to finish. I don't need to finish
Yeah.
this.
Oh, no, well, that's amazing, Rich. Honestly, you've shared such gold and really good points and lots of food for thought for the audience. And I'm sure they're all really interested to know where they can discover, you, your books, everything you do on and offline. Can you share those details?
Probably the easiest way, just go to my website. Free things are there right above, right on the homepage by the fold, richbrands.org. Just don't get the ORG wrong. Rich Brands, my name, Rich, and Brands, what we do, BRANDS.org. Right above the fold on the homepage, right there in front of you, it's going to say, get the free FAQ branding videos. Yeah, download those, listen to them. They'll answer a lot of your questions. Or it'll say, talk to Rich for 30 minutes. You should see my calendar. I've been doing this for 48 years. I have colleagues who say, you should be on a beach or on a yacht. You know where I am? I'm on Zoom. And as long as I'm on Zoom, if you don't take advantage of it, what were you thinking? Okay, just saying. So richbrands.org, talk to Rich for 30 minutes or pick 15 if you want. And say, in that very short period of time, I can hear about you. I can handle an issue that is brand new to you. It's not new to me. I can envision possibilities for the brand you will become. Look, it's my skill. It is a gift and it flows through me, not from me. Mm. And literally we're heading toward our divine purposes. So why not? If any of this resonates with you, get on there. Now, you can go on all over that website. If you can get to the half day, we do it every month, branding you with impact. Sign up for the half day. It costs you $100, $97. Just get there. It's worth 100 times that. And I do many trainings and things. You'll learn what it means to define and language your brand so clearly that it's got clarity baked into it, and what happens when you do and what happens when you don't. Very, very tangible, specific things. What happens when you do and what happens when you don't. And then we do trainings on logos and taglines, on how to name things, and trainings on prioritizing message hierarchy. You've got to come to that half day, branding you with impact. I do free 60-minute masterclasses. I know if you're in Australia, it might be a little awkward, but I usually do them at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'm in Los Angeles area. And they're called two different ones. One is called Brand First or Die. And that's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And it's brand first. You can sign up right now. Go to brandfirstorDie.com. Right there. And we're creating another one that's called An Hour of Brand Power. And I think the logo is brandpowerhour.com. But just go to brandfirstorDie.com. First, F-I-R-S-T. BrandfirstorDie.com. Sign up. You'll meet me there. And then if you want to talk to me, you can hop on 30 minutes with Rich. Just do it. I want you to be moving confidently toward the brand you get to become, to make the impacts that you were made to make. This process will absolutely help. When the book comes out, you'll hear all about it, because it's probably going to be coming out on that New York publisher. We'll come back at you again and we'll talk about the book, and we'll make the book available to you. I have a little bit of an outline of the book called the Impact Driven Branding Blueprint that I hand out, that has the 7 steps named and what they're about.
Well, congratulations on all your success, Rich. That sounds amazing. We'll put links into the show notes. And thank you so much for your time today. It's been fantastic.
Joanne, thank you for inviting me. And it was a pleasure to be here. And if you're listening to this, please write down, your brand is it's a perception, but it's not your perception. And come from your heart. And don't forget consistency across the board. That's your nemesis. You don't want to make that mistake. All right.
Well said. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
So there you have it, folks, the sensational Rich Kozak. Next time on the Hybrid Author Podcast, can you believe it's that time of year already? Very scary how fast time is flying. And like the motto of this podcast, life really is too short to wait. So this next episode, it's a mid-year mashup for all the guests we've had on the podcast since the beginning of the year, January 2025. Episode 151, Overcoming the Shadows, John Walker Patterson on triumph, vulnerability, and inspiring through memoir. Episode 152, best-selling author Jacqueline Harvey on creating a thriving career in children's fiction and navigating a changing publishing landscape. Episode 153, Relentless Pursuit, Junior Bernard on overcoming adversity and turning survival into inspiration. Episode 154, Dana De Silva on writing erotica. Episode 155, Living with Split, Maggie Walters on the journey of multiple personality disorder and the power of storytelling. Episode 156, A.M. Jackson on balancing romance and suspense and the Love Connection series, Swart. Susie Samuel revising a bestseller and The Dark at the Threshold. Episode 157, Susie Samuel revising a bestseller and The Dark at the Threshold. Episode 158, Uncovering Truths in Young Adult Fiction with Karen Cunningham on writing and self-publishing Missing Sarah Harris. Episode 159, Shane Simonson on self-publishing books versus blogging on Substack. Episode 160, How Poetry Serves as a Form of Healing and Self-Discovery with Jessie Volm. Episode 161, Stephen Whiteside on writing narrative nonfiction in Australian history, Snow, Fire and Gold. Episode 163, The Power of Podcasts to Connect People Through Compelling Storytelling and Meaningful Conversations with Devin Blair. Episode 164, Reigning in Regency, D.G. Rampton on crafting timeless romance and thriving as a hybrid author. Episode 165, Sandy Parsons on self-publishing children's fiction overseas. Episode 166, Tackling Tough Topics, Christopher Chen on addressing big themes in children's literature with sensitivity. Episode 167, Joanne Merrick on empowering readers to make informed decisions. Episode 169, Writing Good Mystery Books for Kids in Outback Noir with Rosie Chanel. Episode 171, Embarking on Adventures, Yarn Quest and the Magic of Children's Fantasy with Brooke Scobie. Episode 172, Retirement Money Secrets with Stephen Sellingut. And today's episode, 173, How to Elevate Your Life and Business to a Higher Level with Rich Kozak. I wish you well in your author adventure for the rest of this week. That's it from me. It's bye for now. That's the end for now, authors. I hope you're further forward in your author adventure after listening, and I hope you'll listen next time. Remember to head on over to the Hybrid Author website at www.hybridauthor.com.au to get your free author pass. It's bye for now.